first time I saw her, she wasn't even looking at me. She was looking past me, right at the old car sitting in my driveway. Her lips twisted like she'd smelled something rotten. "That rust bucket," she said loudly enough for half the street to hear, "is ruining the aesthetic of this neighborhood." That was the moment I knew. My new neighbor, Karen, was going to be a problem. The rust bucket she was referring to wasn't just any car. It was a 1964 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. 3, a classic piece of British luxury history. I'd spent 3 years tracking down. Sure, it looked rough. The paint was faded, chrome dulled, and the interior smelled faintly of old leather and time. But to me, it was a diamond buried under dust. I had just moved into the neighborhood, a peaceful, show-controlled suburb, where lawns were measured by the inch and mailboxes matched like soldiers in a line. The last thing I expected was drama over my project car. That night, as I was unloading tools, Karen strutted over with a clipboard in hand. "You can't leave that thing out here," she snapped. "This is a community, not a junkyard." I smiled politely. "It's temporary. I'm restoring it." Her eyebrow twitched. "Restoring? Honey, that heap needs a miracle." I bit back a laugh. If only she knew. Over the next few days, her passive-aggressive campaign began. Snide remarks to passing neighbors, HOA complaint letters, even photos taken from across the street. I caught her snapping one at 6 a.m. while pretending to water her plants. But I stayed calm. What she didn't realize was that I'd already arranged for the car to be professionally, detailed impartially, restored right there in my garage. The body shop was scheduled for pickup the next week. Every insult she threw just fueled me more. I worked late into the nights, polishing chrome, reupholstering leather, cleaning decades of grime from the engine. And when I'd pause, I'd look out the garage window to see Karen glaring from her window, like a watchdog of judgment. Then one morning, I woke up to find a bright yellow notice taped to my door. Final warning. Remove vehicle within 72 hours. The HOA had officially declared war, but what they didn't know was that the next time they saw that car, it wouldn't be an eyesore. It would be a showstopper worth $500,000. By the second morning, the yellow notice had become the talk of the street. Neighbors I'd barely met started whispering as I passed, throwing sympathetic glances or smirks, depending on which side they were on. Karen, of course, looked triumphant. She stood on her porch that day in her floral robe, sipping coffee like a queen who had just conquered new land. "Guess the HOA finally woke up," she said, loud enough for me to hear. "Maybe now we can have some class back in this neighborhood." I just smiled. "Don't worry, Karen, class is on its way." Her smirk faltered, but she said nothing. That afternoon, I called the restoration crew a father and son duo who specialized in luxury classics. When their truck rolled up, Karen came storming out like she was under siege. "Excuse me, you can't work on that thing here. HOA rules." "Relax," I said. "They're just here to pick it up." But when the men began carefully loading the car onto the flatbed, her face turned red. "You're towing it? Finally. Good riddance." The irony was delicious. She thought she'd won. For 2 weeks, my driveway sat empty. Karen paraded around, acting like she'd saved the block from ruin. I overheard her bragging to the HOA president. He finally listened to me. Maybe he realized this isn't the kind of place for whatever that was. Meanwhile, I was quietly tracking the restoration progress. New paint, metallic silver, fresh Connolly leather interior. The original V8 engine brought back to a whisper-quiet purr. Each update came with photos that made my heart race. Then the big day came. The truck arrived early in the morning. The sun had barely risen when that gleaming Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud rolled down the ramp. It looked like it had just driven off a royal estate. Polished chrome, glossy paint reflecting the sunrise, white-walled tires pristine. Karen came outside holding her newspaper and froze mid-step. Her jaw actually dropped. I couldn't resist. "Hey Karen," I said casually. "What do you think of the car now?" She blinked, speechless. "That's the same one?" she stammered. "The very same," I said with a grin. "Turns out it's a collector's piece, just appraised at around 500 grand. She didn't even respond, just turned and shuffled back to her house, the newspaper still in her hand upside down. But that wasn't the end. The real fireworks began when the HOA found out what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to something unexpected, my phone buzzing non-stop. At first I thought it was spam, but when I checked, I realized half the neighborhood group chat was blowing up. Apparently, Karen had posted a photo of my junk car months ago to mock me. Now someone had shared a recent picture of the restored Rolls-Royce right below it with the caption, "Same car, appraised at $500,000. Oops." The post had exploded. Comments poured in, neighbors laughing, others apologizing. a few tagging Karen with clown emojis. I couldn't help but laugh. Karma had arrived faster than Amazon Prime. By noon, the HOA president, Mr. Benson, showed up at my door. He was an older man, sharp suit, clipboard in hand, and a nervous smile. "Good afternoon," he said. "We, wanted to apologize for the misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I asked. "You mean the remove this eyesore or face fines misunderstanding?" He cleared his throat. "Yes, well, it seems Mrs. Parker, Karen, filed multiple complaints that influenced our decision. We weren't aware the vehicle was, well, valuable." "Valuable?" I grinned. "It's insured for $500,000. His eyes widened slightly. "Indeed. Would you, by any chance, be willing to showcase it at our upcoming neighborhood charity event? It would certainly improve our community's image." Oh, the irony. The same HOA that tried to ban my car now wanted to show it off. Before I could answer, Karen appeared again, arms crossed, face red. "You can't be serious," she snapped at Benson. "He's the one who broke the rules."
That car was an eyesore!
Benson turned to her, visibly annoyed. "Mrs. Parker, it's a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Classic luxury. It raises the property value, not lowers it." Karen's face twisted. "Property value," he smiled politely. "Yes, in fact, a few neighbors already mentioned your street looks more prestigious now." The look on her face could have fueled my car for a week. When Benson left, Karen marched up to me. "You planned this," she accused. I shrugged. "Nope, I just fixed my car." She stared at the gleaming chrome reflection of her own scowl shining back. "I'm not done with you," she muttered before storming off. I watched her go, knowing she'd probably double down. And I was right, because 2 days later, I got a new letter from the HOA. This time, signed by Karen herself, and it wasn't an apology. 2 days later, I found a fresh white envelope taped to my door. Same HOA letterhead, same bold font, but this one was signed by Karen Parker, now apparently acting head of neighborhood beautification. The letter stated my vehicle's public display was distracting and creating unnecessary gatherings, and that I had 7 days to remove or conceal it from view. I almost laughed out loud. She couldn't stand that the neighborhood now loved my car. Kids waved when I drove by. People slowed down to take photos, and one neighbor even asked if his daughter could take her prom pictures next to it. Karen, of course, couldn't handle not being the center of attention, so I decided to give her exactly what she didn't want: attention. That weekend, I held an open driveway, Car Appreciation Day. I invited everyone on the street except Karen, balloons, coffee, snacks, the works. The Rolls-Royce sat gleaming under a velvet rope, a small sign reading, "The car that ruined the neighborhood." Within an hour, nearly everyone showed up. Phones flashed. Laughter echoed. Even Mr. Benson dropped by to compliment the setup. "Beautiful turnout," he said. "Might do wonders for community spirit." I grinned. Exactly what I was going for. And right on cue, Karen emerged. She stood across the street, arms folded tight, eyes shooting daggers. A few people waved to her, but she refused to move. I swear I saw her grinding her teeth. Then came the perfect twist. A man in a navy blazer walked up and introduced himself, turns. Out he was a local collector who'd seen the photos online. "I've been looking for this exact model," he said. "Would you consider selling?" Karen's ears perked up like a meerkat. "Depends," I said. "What's your offer?" He smiled. "I can go up to $520,000 if the documentation checks out." You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's jaw fell open again. Her face turned pale, then red, then a fascinating shade of purple. She stormed up the driveway. "You can't sell that here. It's not allowed." The collector raised an eyebrow. "Not allowed to sell a car?" I handed him the appraisal papers. "Everything's legal, sir." He nodded, shook my hand, and said he'd be in touch. Karen spun around and stomped off, muttering something about unbelievable show-offs. As the crowd laughed and chatted, I leaned against the rolls and took one last look at the neighborhood. Karen wanted to tear me down, but all she did was make me the legend of the block. Enjoying these wild HOA and Karen stories? Hit that subscribe button for more jaw-dropping neighborhood drama and real-life revenge tales. If this one made you smile, give it a like, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your neighbor tried to get your car banned?